In this video, I want to explore ideas around focus, ADHD, and acceptance of your limitations. And this isn't to be a depressing video, this is to actually see acceptance as growth and working with the limitations that you have appeared to be given. And what I mean by this is that, for example, in my situation, it seems useful to try on a lens of accepting that I can't necessarily be extremely productive for very long if I'm just living alone with no one around me. I don't think anyone can do that usually, most people probably couldn't cope that well doing that. But for me, I had a large amount of resistance against that idea. Like why not just wake up early every morning and get my workout, get my, 6 hours of work of reading or whatever in. And I realized that man, when my roommate's not around, it's kind of shit. I kind of just succumb to whatever vice, video games, YouTube. Those are the ones for me. Those are the ones. And I've noticed a memory came up where I was reading a thread about ADHD and focus. And one thing that really popped out to me was when a guy that said, what really helped him conquer his ADHD was accepting that when he had a hard time focusing in something, it's not that he didn't have a hard time to focus, it's that he just truly wasn't interested in it. I don't think ADHD people have necessarily a focus problem per se, because if you're ADHD like me, then you have experienced the phenomenon of hyperfocus. So you know what it's like to binge a topic, to the bitter end for hours upon hours, maybe days. There's no problem focusing there. All of a sudden, you're reading a novel and holy shit, you're ready to just decimate that entire novel in a day because it's interesting to you. What? Your reading ability just goes through the roof? How does that happen? And so what I mean here with acceptance with productivity is learning how to accept what you are authentically interested in and what you authentically really give a fuck about. And this can be really difficult to process. For example, I have these ideas of I can, because for this period of time, I don't live alone, but for this period of time, my roommate has been gone for a couple months. And there's a lot of days where I'm just alone and I have to intentionally socialize myself and whatnot. But just having someone that is not around me, constantly, keeping me in check, it's a lot different when it comes to my productivity. And I think that's for everybody. But I do notice that in general, my coping goes way down when I'm just not around people, when I'm not talking to people, when I'm not socializing, right? And that does make me think about ideas. If I can first entertain the idea of accepting that, I don't do well being alone, then okay, well, why not go to a university and just make it a day, pack a lunch and study there. Totally doable. So those are ideas that I'm exploring now. It's why not? You're going to be around people, even just studying around people, and see if that does, you're exploring if that does anything different. But back on this topic of, ADHD people, it seems like, and I am making a broad sweep here, but this is kind of like my way of making sense of it, is that I'm attaching it to the label of ADHD, where I'm saying we cannot inauthentically give a fuck about anything. That we really need to be fully invested in what we are doing right now. And if we're not, then we're not gonna, there's just no way you're gonna get me to move at all. And that's an idea that makes a lot of sense. And the challenge then becomes like, how do you find the useful things that you're extremely interested in, so you're constantly in that flow? And now that's a challenge for everybody, but I think it's a more desperately fought war for ADHD people, because it's either you find the thing that you're completely zoned in on, and then otherwise you have to suffice for just being distracted and not being focused at all. And so things like massively constructing a life purpose, constructing a web of like a curriculum for yourself, actually just being like in like a college or like a university, where it's like, this project gets me to this grade and all that stuff. Like, that's great. But yeah, it's just some things I'm considering and thinking about. And, for some people, this idea of acceptance definitely means like, yeah, like I just need ADHD medication. But I don't buy that one yet. I still would like to do like a heavy metal detox to invest in my brain's ability to focus, and as well as it's called like it's like brain training, and I don't even meditate right now on the daily. So what the fuck am I talking about? Talking about focus when I don't even meditate for at least like 20 minutes. So yeah, it's just a little bit of a spiel about what's kind of been on my mind around really, in life, when we're not motivated by something, we have to really pull back and be like, okay, like what's the issue with our morale here? I think as a rule of thumb, it would be a good idea to see if you can create a life such that you're constantly engaged with all the activities that are important when it comes to furthering your career and growth, right? That's the ideal, where you can form that mastery, where you're constantly putting yourself in situations and doing practice routines where you can just dial in and focus. Like for me, one form of acceptance right now is that I'm using a fucking selfie stick. Like, I can have a tripod, but there's something about holding a selfie stick and like, I guess, concentrating on the stabilization of the video, so I'm not wobbling and shit like that much. That helps me dial in my focus. It's kind of bizarre, but I kind of intuitively felt this out because I do remember making videos or having the idea of making videos of like while walking and while hiking, and I've done that, and it's just like, yeah, no, those, it's when I'm getting some sort of movement, or there's some sort of, I guess this is like balance, hand-eye coordination, that just gets my brain working. Movement is what helps the flow of insight, flowing like water. Something like that. So yeah, I guess some takeaways is, if you're not fully engaged with every activity that you do in your life, ask yourself the question is, is there a possibility here where you could make life fit you like a glove just a little bit more? Where you can optimize your tasks, you can even gamify your tasks such that you are optimally motivated to do every task in your day, the ones that are important to you and plus the monotonous ones. Right, Max? All right. That's about it for this one. I'd like to thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.